In today's video, we have lots to cover, including big news from the waiver wire. Carolina has placed one of their goalies on waivers today. Plus, we're taking a look at the trade market, taking a look at the possibility of the Bruins adding an offensive defenseman. Are the Leafs in possible trouble to keep Nylander or Marner, or could one lead to the other leaving? We're going to discuss a possible scenario where they're both possibly heading to free agency and how they might all play out, and which could end up leading to a big trade. We have all that and several injury updates and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot of news to hear today. Let's start first with the big news from the NHL waiver wire. Big news today that the Carolina Hurricanes have placed goaltender Raanta on waivers. Of course, Raanta's been with the Hurricanes for some time. An older veteran goaltender, but he has had his struggles this year, and the Hurricanes have kind of got to the point where they've kind of seen enough and they need better results. There's just no way around it. Of course, they're already without Freddie Anderson, who's out indefinitely dealing with a blood clot issue. So far this year, Raanta's appeared in 14 games. He's got a 3.61 goals against average and an .854 save percentage. I mean, that's certainly not great. He's on a short-term deal, making, I think it was $1.5 million. So thankfully, they're not caught up in a situation like we're seeing in Edmonton with Campbell on a long-term deal or anything of that nature. But still, Peter Kochetkov has been playing more lately. Certainly had his struggles too, but he's been the better goalie as of late, a little bit more consistent. So we'll see. This certainly does put the Carolina Hurricanes on the goalie trade market. I think they were already there, but this kind of just solidifies the fact that they're going to possibly have some more flexibility now. It's not a given that Raanta be sent to the minors if he clears. I don't know that it's a given he gets picked up either, given the stats he's put up this year. It's kind of difficult to say where that goes. Another team, because there's enough of them out there, are looking for help between the pipes, whether it be Edmonton, Seattle, New Jersey's kind of kick tires on goalies, and others. So somebody might take him, but the way he struggled this year, I kind of have my doubts. If they can send him to the minors, if he clears, they'll be able to get cap relief on a big chunk of his salary where he's only making about 1.5. So ultimately, this could clear the way for the Hurricanes to go down the goalie trade market and make a deal. They had been previously linked to Montreal Canadiens goaltender Jake Allen. This could make things a little bit more feasible for a potential trade. No guarantee, of course, they go that route, but given Allen's contract and the veteran with a Stanley Cup, the stability he normally brings, it might be a case where one move could possibly lead to the other. So we will certainly see where things go. Like I said, there's numerous reports in the last week or two. Montreal media is convinced that Jake Allen will ultimately be the goalie that's on the outside looking in, either possibly even put on waivers himself or trade it. And it'll be Primo and Montembeault running with the tandem for the Montreal Canadiens for the second half of the season. So we'll see. This is a big news here, and we'll see where things go. Last night, the Ottawa Senators blew multiple 2-goal leads and dropped another one to the Dallas Stars, and in the process had some injuries to deal with as well. They lost Matthew Joseph and Rourke Chartier. Both got hurt last night, so they're both going to miss time. Vladimir Tarasenko also missed last night's game, but it was not due to injury. It was due to a personal family matter. So we don't know if he's going to be back for the next game, which is tomorrow against Vegas, or not. In the interim, the Senators have recalled Yuri Schmeichel and brought up Angus Crookshank as well. It'll be Crookshank's first NHL action should he get into the lineup, and I suspect he will, given the injury situation that they're dealing with. The Maple Leafs are battling the Penguins tonight. They're going to be without Austin Matthews and TJ Brody, both battling the flu. They did get Timothy Liljegren back tonight as well. And they got, I guess you could call it somewhat good news. The prognosis on Ryan Reeves isn't as bad as originally feared. He is going to miss time, but he's at this point expected to be out for a long enough time that he needs to be on IR, but not long enough to be on LTIR. So we'll see if things don't progress the way they're hoping. It could lead to that, but things are not looking that way right now. Of course, last night in the Sens and Dallas game, it turned out to be a lot more of a run and gun kind of back and forth game than we ever expected between those two clubs. They lost Jake Ottinger in the first period, Dallas did, and he is going to be out for some time because of their cap space. They're not able to recall another goalie, and they have an emergency backup being the backup for Scott Wedgwood. here tonight. So Ottinger is not quite clear exactly how long he's going to be out, but he is going to miss some time with a lower body injury for a while. Cale Makar also out tonight for the Avalanche with a lower body injury as well. We heard Zach Parise has been training in Minnesota and actively looking at a comeback, looking at possibly rejoining the New York Islanders, but according to reports from NHL insider Chris Johnson and TSN and The Athletic, his reports are indicating that the Islanders are going to have some competition. Now Parise's kind of made it clear before that he didn't see himself playing anywhere else, but I guess there are other teams that are interested in him and want to talk to him at the very least, and that they basically, it's going to come down to the fact that he's going to go to the Islanders where his loyalty lies, or if another team that he thinks might have a better chance at a Stanley Cup, would he go there ultimately instead, because that's something he hasn't accomplished yet in his career, is becoming a Stanley Cup champion. So we will see, but Zach Parise should be signing a contract probably sometime in the next 3-4 weeks, be my guess by the sounds of things. And, well, it looks like he's going to have more options than he might have thought. I still say he likely ends up with the Islanders, but we'll see where that goes. NHL veteran Phil Kessel, the former Ironman, the current streak holder, is still looking on an NHL return as well. Things have not materialized as of yet for him to get a contract. It sounded like he didn't have any interest in going to any training camps on a PTO. He wanted a sure deal, and reports now indicate that he might consider playing over in Switzerland, at least on a short-term basis while he's waiting for an NHL contract. No guarantee he's going to do that, but apparently it is something that he's considering. Now, on to the trade talk. There is some word that the Boston Bruins from Boston Hockey Now are interested in adding on the blue line. Of course, the Bruins have had a pretty solid start to the year. They have excellent goaltending. The forward group's been pretty solid as well. Not that the blue line hasn't been, but of course, you need a lot of defensemen to be able to go deep in the playoffs. And according to reports from Boston Hockey Now, they're interested in adding an offensive type defenseman, and if they can add either a guy like Tyson Barrie or Tony DeAngelo, apparently they're weighing out the possibility of either option. Of course, Tony DeAngelo was making far less money, but if the Predators would retain money on Barrie, they could get that salary down to a more reasonable level. No quite clear cut what the asking price might be or what they might be willing to give up. They were previously also linked to Noah Hanifin, and I would not rule that out. I do think that Hanifin is probably their top choice. My guess is that the asking price on Hanifin might be a little bit high, and it might feel like they don't want to overpay in that case, because if he hits UFA status this offseason, which is expected, they can sign him as a free agent and not have to pay any assets to make that acquisition to their roster. So there's no point in overpaying if you can get him as a free agent later, but they might need another option to fall back on for this year's playoffs. So Tony DeAngelo and Tyson Barrie are both guys that they're apparently kind of considering what they might be able to do in those cases. Now, of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be a very interesting team to watch down the stretch and into the offseason. Of course, we know right now, regular season-wise, they're off to a pretty good start again. I've seen some concerns over their blue line, some concerns over goaltending and all that. But, at the end of the day, they're getting the job done and they're marching their way back to the playoffs, which is what they've done for some time. I know on one of the Sportsnet programs on Kipper and Bourne's radio show, they were talking recently about Nylander and Marner and what these contracts might look like for the future. And can they get Nylander extended? What's the future look like there? And there's a lot of concern right now that William Nylander's agent, Louis Gross, has Nylander pretty well primed and ready to take this all the way to market in the offseason, and that there's not going to be a deal get done between the Leafs and Nylander, at least not ahead of the opportunity to speak to other teams. At least that's what they were talking about, and they said that there's some sources that they have that says that he's kind of got one foot out the door, not to leave, but to test the market, to make sure he's getting the best deal. We've said before, William Nylander is a guy who's already been underpaid, already took a discount, and he's not going to do that again. He wants to make sure he gets as much money as possible, and he's playing like phenomenal this year and really deserves a significant raise anyhow. So with that in mind, they're talking about the fact that ultimately, if he goes to market or if he's not signing, What's that going to mean for this team? Brad Treliving, when he came to the Leafs, made it known he was not going to go through another scenario like he did with Johnny Gaudreau. He has no intention of having another star player go all the way to market and leaving for nothing. So if they get closer to the trade deadline, regardless of where things stand for standings and what things are looking like for playoffs, would they consider a Nylander trade? I mean, you wouldn't think so. But at the same time, you have to think about this year and the future. And based on what the future indicates, if they think they're going to lose Nylander for nothing, if he refuses to really get too far along in negotiations and won't sign anything before the deadline, do they have to protect themselves for future years? Now, the problem to lay out here is that if Nylander makes it to market, they might have a hard time to keep him, or they're going to have to drastically overpay because teams will be out there offering him ridiculous amounts of money. And it's just that simple. Teams always overpay on July 1st in free agency, and it's going to really cause the Leafs to have to up their offer to probably be able to keep him, which is, it's one thing to overpay. They've been overpaying a lot of other contracts, and, you could only leave so much money for your depth, or your depth is not going to be very good. And that's the problem that they've run into here in the last number of years. They can't make enough other upgrades, and the supporting cast is always changing because they always need to find cheaper players who can hopefully do the same job. And that's going to get tougher and tougher and tougher to accomplish. The other problem that's kind of posed by this as well is if Nylander ends up leaving, and he's not on a roster anymore, that means that Marner, who's due a year later, is going to be able to get the absolute maximum amount. Like, he's going to be looking for the same as Matthews, no doubt. And you're going to have to pay him because you're not going to want to be in a situation 2 years in a row where you lose another elite level winger. It's just not going to happen. So losing Nylander is going to probably cause them to pay Marner even more. And the other fear with that they talked about as well is, what if Marner's, biggest thing is wanting to be on a team that can win the cup? And if maybe he feels if Nylander's gone, Tavares' contract's going to be expiring. If he doesn't come back, or he's getting older too, regardless if he stays or not, is this a team he still has confidence in? Would he consider leaving? It could really have a major spin-off effect, either for a cap hit, or where Marner can now demand more money and absolutely get it, or could it lead to a possibility of Nylander and Marner both being off the team within 2 years? I don't personally see that happening. I don't think that's the case. I honestly think Marner would like to stay in Toronto, and if Nylander, for whatever reason, doesn't stay, that's just going to give them that much more money that he can demand from them, which I think I can see him commanding. So we'll see where that goes, but ultimately, with Nylander, with considering what Treliving has said, that he's not going to let another star player walk for nothing, and if there's no resemblance of a contract getting close to being signed by the deadline, will they pull the trigger? Will they get that done? Ultimately, that's something that we don't know. A lot of people would think, they're never going to do that. But it kind of goes against what Treliving said he would do. And at the end of the day, we know that Nylander and his father and the agent are notorious for being extremely difficult contract negotiators. So you have to wonder what the future holds here. And Kipper and Bourne onto something that, he's really eager at this point to test free agency and see what kind of bag of money is out there for him. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.